Cheating gets talked about so much. Hey, you guys, we are talking about another book. We're really gonna dive into the no-show. I took down some notes and then we're kind of just gonna go along with this story to really try to get the pieces together of the timeline. So a heads up, there are going to be spoilers, and click out if you want to read first. But I really want to do a spoiler review because I really want to talk about this book, and I feel like it's best to do a spoiler review because 5% at the end of the book, all the pieces finally come together. You're really confused. And here's the irony is that cheating gets talked about so much, and if you don't get through this whole book, you're gonna assume like the guy is cheating, but the irony is there's actually no cheating involved. You just have to really push through with this book, because when I was first reading it, I had so many theories and the ending didn't turn out how I thought it would. Let's just get into it. Yeah, I'm excited to talk about it. We have some notes and then we're just gonna try to follow along the rest of the pieces of this book and just kind of skim together. It's been a bit since I read the book. This is the spoiler. It was definitely giving girl from the past, girl from the present, girl from the future. And I didn't realize that till like the end. I was like, oh, like a past, present, future situation, assuming he was cheating and it was all in the same timeline. It's not, but that's what I had assumed originally. I think I thought, okay, date her first, date her second, date her third. But honestly, his chemistry with her, okay, real quick, Joseph, Siobhan, Miranda, Jane. Joseph's chemistry with Siobhan, I apologize if I'm saying her name wrong. I felt like Joseph and Siobhan had like the most chemistry. So then the more I was reading it, I was like, I really didn't know who to root for. Well, I knew like Miranda was eliminated because her and this guy AJ that she works with had like way more chemistry. So that was easy. But the other two, I really was like torn and like confused of who to root for. But then looking back, it was all different timelines as I had figured out. The book's coming across like Joseph is like this bad guy when I feel like at the end of the day, he's just misunderstood. And also keep in mind, because it is 3 separate timelines, it all makes sense now as like the book progresses. But in the moment, it's like, what is this guy doing? I really didn't like him until obviously the end of the story. Once I realized everything, then I did like Joseph. Because at first I was like, when Miranda was dating Joseph, I'm like, go after AJ. He's Mr. Right. With Siobhan, I was originally like, girl, you can do so much better. But then I liked their chemistry together. I kind of, out of all the couples, was like a Siobhan and Joseph shipper as the book progressed. Something about their chemistry, it was spicy, but then it was really sweet, and they're just so opposite. He's nerdy, she's like super confident in herself. Well, with Siobhan, it's really sad because she would come across to her friends like really confident in herself, but she actually had a lot of insecurities. So I kind of was like constantly worried. I was like, something's gonna happen. I was kind of scared for Siobhan. I'm like, no. Kind of really wanted these two to end up together, you know? I was kind of really shipping, but I also really liked Joseph and Jane's connection. They connected over books. She's more shy, reserved. They had a slower romance, which we'll get more into of why that was the way it was, because if I try to sum this book up with the correct timeline with spoilers, keep in mind these two, Jane and Miranda, did end up meeting. We'll get into it, but Siobhan didn't meet them, and like I said, we'll keep going. No one ever really knew each other. But I will say this, the interesting parallel was Siobhan was a life coach, and keyword was, I know we're gonna get into it, you guys, and she was a life coach to this really creepy guy that was like inappropriate, and it turned out he was being inappropriate to Jane, but Siobhan didn't know it was Jane, and I thought that was a very interesting parallel, but she felt bad for whoever it was, but we find out later on it was Jane, and she was trying to protect Jane. I was like, we love the womanhood here. It's just crazy with the parallels, but I was like, okay. The older we get, we love it. And it's kind of funny because I felt like Joseph had the biggest connection with Siobhan and Jane too. It's just weird because Siobhan from the past was looking out for the future and Jane was in the future. Yeah. Not to say Joseph and Miranda didn't have chemistry. They did a little bit, but it just wasn't fully clicking for me, especially because her and AJ had way more chemistry. And again, there was like no cheating, just like little flirtation like Miranda and AJ, but like no cheating. I don't know, when people kind of come at the offer, it's like you just gotta keep reading, because I, for most of the book, thought there was cheating and I was like annoyed, but when you really get through it, there isn't. That's also why I'm doing a spoilers episode, because I feel like a lot of people gotta understand, like, you gotta read it, you gotta push through it. It's actually really good. It's a romance mystery. In the beginning, Joseph kind of was a player back in the day, and I think that's why the book keeps alluding to cheating a lot, because he would date around when that was like in the past. I don't really know, like with him and Siobhan, they were kind of like a friends with benefits, so who knows if they were talking to other people. It's at the beginning when you look back, and so I don't have enough timeline. But then eventually Siobhan realized she has feelings for Joseph. Then he starts seeing someone else, and it's not Miranda, not Jane. Once I had realized this was a past tense time frame, it was just somebody different, and he realized after Siobhan that he wanted a serious relationship with someone because they only really had like a fling. But then Siobhan's girls were like, girl, you just gotta tell him like how you feel. So on New Year's Eve, it's funny because every single romance goes back to New Year's Eve. Siobhan confesses to him how she feels, and thankfully he's out of the relationship with the other girl, so they date and they have this beautiful love story and fall in love, and they go on like beautiful dates together. But oh my gosh, This book, I cried. There's a selfie of me when I read the part that I'm gonna insert in the thumbnail because, oh, I was a wreck when I found this out. Unfortunately, Siobhan passes away. The creepy guy that she was the life coach for was like chasing after her. He was just like really weird and sus. As she was meeting up with Joseph for Valentine's Day, keep in mind it's on Valentine's Day, you guys, she literally gets hit with a motorcycle and doesn't make it. What page was it? It broke me, but the author wrote it really beautifully. Siobhan and Joseph, there was always like a constant pattern of like Joseph running late to Siobhan, because that's kind of how this whole book starts. He was running late to his date with Siobhan, but before Siobhan had passed away, she was running late to the date. Her circumstance was a lot worse though. Joseph, again, wasn't really explained why he was late. I think he was just genuinely accidentally running late. In the scene, she was running late, but she said, "I'm late, but of course he's waited for me." She's thinking as her body begins to crumble, "He's always waited for me." As like the motorcycle accident happens, like she sees him. There is a sudden roaring silence, then white noise coursing through her as if her pain is audible and she's vibrating with its single awful note. And just like that, in an instant, Jackson. And just like that, in an instant, as if the universe doesn't care that her story is really just starting, Siobhan Kelly has less than 1 minute left to live. There's no acceptance. She doesn't have time for that. There's only anger, pain, and loss. Joseph is coming to her, though she can't see. She knows he's coming. Pushing through the cafe, shoving against the door, pushing through the traffic, and slammed against the bonnet of a car as it almost knocks him down. As her seconds bleed away, it's not Siobhan's life that passes before her eyes. It's the life she has finally let herself begin to imagine. Quick kisses first thing in the morning as Joseph passes her a coffee. Slow walks down shorefront as they talk about their future. Wedding dress shopping with Fiona as Siobhan abandons her scruples about marriage because she loves him. Because she knows it's forever, even if her head still says forever is too good to be true. And the children, all the children she has ached for. The children she already knows deep in her belly and loves with every scrap of her being. Okay, I'll say this. So you guys know this about me. I'm really hesitant if I want kids or not someday. It's not that I'm fully closed off to it. I don't know if I'm fully open to it, and that's something I will have to figure out with my future husband, because if I'm dating a guy and if he wants kids, like, I don't want to stop him. I just don't know how I feel about it is my problem. I'm really happy I'm not dating right now, because that's definitely going to be like a hurdle when I do date, because I feel like every guy I meet for sure wants kids, and the fact that I'm like unsure makes it bad. I've either like dated guys that want kids or don't want kids, not like in the middle, and that's kind of where I'm at. But I will say this, that line that I had read, even though like I don't know if I want kids or not, because like I said, I'm like in the middle. It's not like I'm fully closed off to it. I'm just like not sure if I'm fully open to it, which is rare. Like I'm in the 1%. I know so many women want kids. I don't know. For me, it's just different. You guys know I lost my Aunt Lisa, and she never had kids. She had stepkids, but she never had like kids to actually take care of, and she lived her best life. And I look at that and I'm like, I kind of just want to live my best life and not worry about responsibility. But at the same time, it would be really beautiful to experience. So I don't know. But my point is, that line really did hurt me when I read it back. For me, being unsure about kids, it really broke my heart. Because I guess truly, when you really do love someone, you see that future, that engagement, that wedding, kids, like you really do see it, you know. And maybe that's why, like, maybe once I will find the love of my life, I'll change my perspective. That's why I say like I'm in the middle with it, because I'll be honest, with the guys I've dated in the past, like I just never was 100% like confident of like, oh, do I want to have kids with that guy? And I'd be like, no. Maybe someday I will feel confident where I'm like, oh wow, like he's so attractive, he's attentive to me, he's there for me, like I want to have kids, you know. I don't know, maybe genuinely I've just never experienced that type of love. That's keep finishing. It hurts. There is no hurt like it, but because she is Siobhan Kelly and a fighter to her core, as those last few seconds are passing, it's not despair she's feeling, it's something fiercer than that. She's bargaining with hard to read. She's bargaining with her body the way she always has, pushing it harder than it wants to be pushed. This line broke me, you guys. Just give me a few more moments, she thinks, long enough for him to get to me and look me in the eyes so I can tell him. You guys, I was so low-key hoping like something was gonna change and she was gonna be like in the next few chapters after. This is it. 287, that's it, of Siobhan. And it really broke me, y'all. I thought she was at least gonna tell him she loved him before she passed, and then that was literally it. The offer was done. I just felt like Siobhan and Joseph like deserved to be together. I really liked their story. But Joseph and Jane still had a really beautiful love story as well, so we'll keep proceeding. Next we have Miranda. That's more in the present day tense. I feel bad for Miranda. Looking back, she was definitely Joseph's rebound. I don't think it was intentionally. I think Joseph just genuinely wanted to move forward and find love, but he kind of did it in the wrong way because he still didn't cope with Siobhan being gone, because Joseph wasn't like a good boyfriend to Miranda. Like, he wasn't attentive to her. He'd show up late because he would sleep in and still be depressed and thinking about Siobhan. Like, when I'd look back reading the whole book, like everything was still about Siobhan. So he would always just run late because of his past trauma, which is terrible to date someone who's like emotionally unavailable. And that's why I was like, Miranda deserves better. So then when AJ, you know, this hot guy, like, you know, he's being attentive to her and like showing up for her, that's why I was like, end up with him, you know? But anyways, they do end up together though, Miranda and AJ, which I'm like, yeah. But even at one point, Miranda found on Joseph's phone that it was Siobhan Day, and so she thought like he was cheating, but no, she passed away. And again, there was no cheating in the book. On that day, like basically Joseph would meet up with her friends and his friends and all just kind of be in memory of her and like get a bite to eat together and talk about her. That's what that was about. And then the New Year's Eve scene with Miranda and Joseph was actually their breakup. So that was crazy. And then in the future context is with Jane. Joseph kind of really messed up with Jane in the beginning, but he really did redeem himself by the end. I don't know like how Joseph is meeting all these girls, because it felt like very back to back to back. Like Siobhan passes away, he meets Miranda to move on. Miranda breaks up with Joseph. Soon after is friends with Jane and meets her. It's like, how is he meeting all these girls and like falling in love? So like it makes me be all like, ugh, Joseph, but it also supposed to be a love story, so I guess it's okay. I don't know. Jackson wants to join now. Come on. He likes my story time. Yes, everyone wants to see you. You just get all comfy. He loves my story times. No, he just loves to be here for me. But anyhow, with the Joseph and Jane context now in the future, they become like really good friends. Jane's really like reserved, quiet to herself. She has like a dark past she's hiding from. She moved to a different part of England. Joseph is just her friend because he's had these dating issues. Clearly, as a friend, he was supposed to go to a wedding. Turned out down the road, he missed accidentally because he slept in because he was really sad thinking about Siobhan. And then Miranda was there helping him. And it was funny because then Miranda and AJ were together. And AJ's like, why do you want to help your ex? Which I'm like, I understand that. But Miranda was really selfless to be like, he just needs someone's help. Like, I'm not interested anymore, but I gotta help him. I was like, oh. So at the end of the book, it made sense how Joseph and Miranda stayed really good friends, honestly, because even though they weren't like soulmates, she was a good supportive friend, which like that was really great. And that's why by the end of the book, Jane, Joseph, Miranda, and AJ were all really good friends with Siobhan's friends too, to all like remember her on Valentine's Day, which was sweet. But Joseph did do something romantic for Jane. We'll get to that at the very end of the story. That's what I mean. Joseph definitely redeemed himself with Jane. I definitely felt like it was hard in the beginning. Jackson just loves it. He's like, I'm living my best life. Joseph's supposed to go to this wedding. He bails. Jane was really sweet and understanding about it. At the beginning of the book, it was like, why are you being so nice about it, girl? But at the end, given the circumstance of what actually had happened, I kind of understood it. I was like, oh, okay, like he was just really going through it. Joseph's timeline with Jane, he was a little bit more guarded and reserved because Miranda had advised him to really like take a year off from being in a relationship, like focus on the friendship with Jane, then he can have like an actual successful love story. So with Jane, he was just more closed off, to fall for her because he needed to heal from Siobhan. There'd be instances where like they were together and nothing like romantically would happen because of how Joseph had felt, but Jane just thought, oh, like Joseph's not that into me. And then at one point they go out dancing together at an event. I kind of forget what it was, like a wedding, someone else's, I don't even know. I forget like details because it's been a year since I read it. I'm so sorry. But like they kiss and he's like, oh, I can't do this, and leaves because like of his past, you know. He was just scared. But I felt bad for Jane because of course like she was insecure and was like, what? I don't remember a whole lot, but Jane was starting to feel insecure that like Joseph was like seeing someone, because she really just didn't know if he was interested or not, because the last time they had kissed he was like bye, when really it was his own like insecurities of falling for someone. So she had ran into one of Joseph's friends being like, does he have a girlfriend? And he was like, I thought it was you, which looking back it all like made sense. At the time I was like, what? I was so confused. But just with all like the Richard drama, and I guess according to this other chapter, Joseph was being like a twat. Let's see, he said, Jane, please call me when you can. I'm so sorry for being a twat at New Year's. If you let me explain, I don't want to make excuses, but I'd really love the chance to talk to you. Hugs. So I guess like he wanted to try to open up about the Siobhan stuff, but it was really hard for him to yet. And there was a moment I think in her apartment that he had visited, and they had like this heart to heart, heart, and it was really deep and it was really emotional, and Jane was just kind of spiraling because she's thinking like, this guy is just like not that into me, when like Joseph was just like really struggling to open up with her. But Jane had a really amazing friend, Aggie, who was really supportive of her friendship when Jane always had a hard time making friends, but down the road she was able to get herself confidence, get Richard fired, which that's something Joseph loved because of the whole Siobhan trauma and then what Jane went through as well. That was amazing. Miranda and AJ live happily ever after. Joseph goes over to Jane's house, tells her everything with his past with Siobhan and why Valentine's Day is really hard because that's the day Siobhan passed away. Jane becomes really understanding, and they slowly but surely get into a relationship and fall in love and eventually move in together. They'll honor Siobhan on Valentine's Day, but at the very end of the book, they were actually in quarantine is how the author wrote it. They were stuck at home. They did like a Zoom phone call, but after the phone call, Jane was really understanding and was like, we don't have to do anything. It could be Siobhan's day. I was like, again, like the womanhood that I feel like Siobhan and Jane had for each other. Even Miranda too, let's be honest, because like at the end of the day, like Miranda was still a really supportive friend of Joseph with everything he had went through with Siobhan, and then the fact that Siobhan subconsciously was looking out after Jane, and then Jane honored Siobhan. We just love the womanhood in this book. That's what's crazy. You don't like expect that because they all three never meet. The two of them, like Miranda and Jane, do, but Siobhan never met them because, you know, she didn't live. And I feel like if Siobhan and Joseph ended up together, that would have been it. But it's different because Joseph and Jane ended up together, and they still had a really beautiful love story too. I just really liked Siobhan and Joseph's love story because I loved how it was like spicy and then sweet and romantic, so it was really tragic. But on Valentine's Day, Joseph builds Jane a huge library. He remembered that she loves books. That was also how they kind of bonded, so Jane and Joseph had more of like a nerdy relationship. That was very cute and romantic as well, and that's why I had a hard time like going back and forth with like Siobhan, Jane, because like Joseph was like great with either one of them. But just what happened to Siobhan was really sad. I'm happy at the end of the day Joseph got to heal and find love. Jane got to heal from her traumatic past and fell in love. AJ and Miranda fell in love. I think the only sad part of this story is that justice for Siobhan. I really wish her and Joseph ended up together, but of how the story was, that didn't happen. So that's the only sad part, is Siobhan's gone. Other than that, it's a beautiful love story. And that's all for this episode today of Mels Talks. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Subscribe. I'm Melanie.